Good evening and welcome to Mets 360 here on Riverside. I'm your host, Brian Jura, and I'm very pleased to welcome back a guy we had on my old podcast back when it was on Blog Talk Radio. I don't know, 6, 8, 10 years ago. It's been a long time. Anyway, he's a baseball author and historian, and his new book, The New Baseball Bible, is published date of 6/24, and you may be able to get it right now on Amazon. And he's more of a Braves fan than a Mets fan, but his book has Tom Seaver on the cover, so we're going to give him a free pass. So please welcome Dan Schlossberg to the podcast. Dan, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Brian.
All right. Well, I like to get right into it. So let's talk about it. The Mets and the Braves, they're getting ready to play each other for the first time this season, which is kind of incredible given that we've played, about 70 games so far. Mets are doing great. Usually a team that's 18 games over 500, like the Mets are, they don't worry about playing a team that's 31 and 39. But right now, absolutely no Mets fan is taking these upcoming series lightly. Tell me the major reasons why the Braves have gotten off to a slow start this season.
Well, number one, they started their season with a West Coast swing to LA and San Diego, two very powerful teams. And, playing on the road on the West Coast is never easy for anyone. So that's what happened. And plus, the Braves didn't have Ronald Acuna Jr. or Spencer Strider at the beginning of the season. So their pitching was a little shaky, their offense was non existent, and they lost all 7 games.
So we've gotten Acuna. Perhaps we can trade him to you in case Ronald has to go on the IL again. Any interest?
Yeah, he could play shortstop for the Braves, definitely. A lot better hitter than Neil Allen.
Well, that's because Neil Allen was a relief pitcher from like 30, 40 years ago. I can't imagine
Well,
his
I'm
bat
sorry,
speed is very good.
I'm thinking of Nick Allen. You're right. You're right. Nick Allen.
You mentioned the West Coast trip, and obviously that's always a killer for the East Coast teams. But when the Mets played the Dodgers earlier this season, the Dodgers had 14 pitchers on the IL. This isn't the first year that a bunch of injuries have hit the Dodgers. What do you make of that? And does that put into perspective the injury situations faced by both the Braves and Mets this year?
Well, teams are telling pitchers to throw as hard as they can for as long as they can. And that is amounting to a lot of elbow injuries. Every team has been afflicted. I mean, with the Braves, Spencer Strider just came back from that. It wasn't Tommy John surgery, but it was an elbow brace procedure. It kept him out for a year. And just about everywhere you look, I mean, Justin Verlander, even late in his career, had Tommy John surgery. So it's a pretty universal problem. Garrett Cole is out now with Tommy John. So you look around baseball, it's not confined to the Dodgers alone.
No, no, but 14 is such a tremendous number. The Mets had three starting pitchers that began the year on the IL, and they just lost Kodai Senga a couple of days ago. And, we're looking at that like, holy smokes, we're snake bit. But that's not 14. And
Well,
and
but
you
the injuries
mentioned
were
the
all
Braves.
different. They're not all elbow injuries. They're different things.
Yes, yes, but that it's just, as a baseball fan, I want to see my best against your best. I mean, I don't want to win against the Dodgers because they had 14 pitchers on the IL. And it's just bad for the game.
Yeah, that's why I'm glad that the Braves didn't play the Mets yet, because without Acuna and Strider, what chance do we have?
Well, the Braves have pretty much owned the Mets for the past, I don't know, 3 decades, which made the Mets clinching a playoff spot last year against the Braves extra meaningful for Met fans. Tell me what your thoughts were in that doubleheader at the end of last season, where each team needed a win to make the playoffs.
Well, if you recall, there were some rainouts in that last weekend, and that forced that Monday doubleheader. I figured the teams would probably split it, which they did. Chris Sale would have pitched the second game if necessary, but he really couldn't pitch at the end of the year last year. So that's why they played the doubleheader. It was a nail biter, but I figured they would split.
Yes, I think that Sale was slated, and they needed him because the Mets won Game 1, but he was just not in a condition to pitch. And then the Mets pitched Joey Lucchesi, I think, who in Game 2, who really hadn't pitched at all for them last year, and then gave a 6 inning performance, which was with only one run, which was really something else. Two tightly contested games, and it's just unfortunate that we didn't get to meet again in the playoffs because I think it would have been an excellent season, excellent series last season.
I agree.
Well, you mentioned Spencer Strider just a minute or so ago. So let's talk about the two Spencers. Strider was a fourth round pick, while the other one, Spencer Schwellenbach, he was a second rounder. And now they're both remarkable pitchers, two pitchers that any team would absolutely love to have on their team. Do you think it was a case of where these guys were undervalued on draft day? Because I mean, they're both pitching like first round draft picks, or do you think those are examples of the Braves player development system?
I think the Braves have an excellent scouting system. They put all their money and all their attention on young players because they really can't compete in the free agent market. They're not going to spend all that money. Although Willie Adames would have been a good sign, even though he is not starting well with the Giants. But the Braves can't compete for even to keep Max Fried. They couldn't compete with the Yankees.
Now, is there anyone else that you would point to as someone on the Braves who maybe wasn't as heralded by certainly other franchises, but who they got their hands on and then turned into a really good player?
Yes, Grant Holmes struck out 15 men in 6 1/3 innings yesterday, and that was pretty incredible performance. Most strikeouts by any Braves pitcher this year. He was in the minor leagues for 10 years before the Braves called him up last year.
Yeah, I got to admit, Holmes is somebody that I had absolutely no idea of who he was until he began this year in the rotation. I'm sure at least partly because of the defection of Freed and the Strider starting the season on the IL. You have to throw a caveat in there in that huge strikeout performance was against the Rockies. Has he been piling up the strikeouts outside of that appearance against a bottom dwelling team?
He's been doing very well. His one problem is a propensity to throw too many home run balls. In that game where Suarez had 4 home runs against the Braves in one game, three of them came off Grant Holmes.
Yikes. Nothing worse than that guy who continually throws the gopher balls. So I want to get your opinion as a non-Mets fan. How do you view the success that the Mets have had with getting good results from essentially unheralded free agent pitchers the last two seasons?
It's really been amazing to me. I mean, I never thought that highly of Frankie Montas, for example, but the Mets have done really, really well. Converting Clay Holmes from the bullpen to a frontline starting position was great. David Peterson has been fabulous. The Mets have done very, very well. I'm amazed. They must have great coaching.
Yeah, and ever since Steve Cohen took over, they've sunk a lot of money into, I guess you would call them off-field personnel. They've really beefed up their analytics department, and they finally debuted their pitching lab, and that's been credited a lot with the success that they've had. Last year was Sean Manaea and Luis Severino, and Severino especially came out of nowhere. And a lot of people were saying that it was maybe arrogance on the Mets' part that they could do it again this year. And the Mets avoided the top tier of the free agent market. And instead, like you mentioned, they got Clay Holmes and Griffin Canning. I think Griffin Canning was actually Braves property for a week or so, and they've turned them into credible pitchers.
Yeah, I'm amazed about Griffin Canning because if you look at his record with the Angels, he was no great shakes.
Yeah, he had, if not the highest ERA, one of the highest ERAs among qualified starters last year. And before yesterday's outing, when he walked the ballpark, he's been really good for the team. Well, I want to talk about player on the Braves, or at least in the Braves system, and that's former Mets first round pick Jared Kelnick. My fear was when Atlanta got him 2 years ago, that was going to be a great place for him to tap into his potential. Instead, he's been underwhelming, and now he's languishing in the minors. What do you think has kept Kelnick from being a quality MLB player?
I think he listened to the hype. I mean, he's very good defensively. He's got some speed, but his hitting, he wants to hit a home run every time he gets up and then admire all the fly balls that sometimes turn into singles or doubles. And that's just not good professional ball play. So the Braves finally got tired of his act. They sent him down to AAA.
Now, former Mets broadcaster Ralph Kiner had a great line, and he's like, home run hitters drive Cadillacs and everybody else drives Chevys. So it's a long history of MLB players who want to hit home runs. But you would think that someone like Kelnick, who clearly has MLB ability, he was a sixth overall pick back when the Mets took him, and you would think that he's experienced enough failure in his major league career with the Mariners and then the Braves that you could get through to him, but Some guys, it just doesn't get through. And it's amazing me that even the Braves seemingly were unable to tap into his potential.
Well, as you said, some guys just don't have what it takes. I remember Joe Charbonneau, the Indians, then the Indians, won the Rookie of the Year award, and that was his only good year in the major leagues.
He had a screw loose. He liked to do some wild off the field things. Now, I may be confusing him with somebody else. Was he the one who liked to eat light bulbs? There was some wacky stuff going on with where he just wasn't wired right.
I don't recall about the light bulbs, but it sounds like Mark the Bird Fidrich.
Well, earlier you mentioned Max Fried, and he's someone that I'd like to spend a minute here talking about. A lot of Mets fans wanted the team to pursue Fried in free agency. They wanted the club to shop at the top end of the free agent market, and that hasn't been something that. President of the baseball operation David Stearns has wanted to do. When healthy, he was very good for the Braves. And so far, he's been outstanding for the Yankees. You mentioned earlier that the Braves may not have the resources to compete for the type of contract that Fried ended up getting. But do you think it was a mistake? Do you think they should have tried to see if he had given them a hometown discount? And do you think that had any effect on the team's slow start this year?
It definitely hurt their start, but the Braves just don't believe in long-term contracts for pitchers. When they gave Spencer Strider a long-term contract, he had 1 year and then he got hurt right away. So that's exactly why Alex Anthopoulos shies away from the long-term contracts.
And that's pretty much David Stern's motif as far as pitchers go. The 2 years he's been here, um, the biggest contract he's given is a 3 year deal, and that's to Mania. And look what happened. Mania went on the IL.
Yeah,
So
what happens? And Montes was another free agent they signed, and he's hurt.
he was, and I think that was a 2 year deal, maybe 2 years with an option. So, they both the leaders of both the Braves and the Mets have. It seems like they have a solid idea that you don't win by giving pitchers 6, 7, 8 year long deals.
I think the Mets did very well in keeping Pete Alonso. I mean, he really drives that lineup. He's having a great year.
He's having perhaps his best year as a pro. He's certainly helped by changing his approach at the plate. It used to be you would look to get him to fish low and away, and he just doesn't do that anymore. And it's really not easy to reinvent yourself after you've been a successful ball player for. I think Pete's been in the majors. I think this is his seventh season. So kudos to him for doing that. And hopefully he can make it last all season long.
Now the Mets have to keep him because he can opt out and be a free agent again.
And not only can he absolutely will. And then the question becomes, do they want to keep that same mindset that they have with a pitcher for a homegrown player who's 30 years old and plays the least valuable defensive position that there is? And there's a long history of first basemen not doing very well once they reach their mid 30s. So, I mean,
Christian Walker this year.
yeah, yeah, and we can go back and you and I can probably name 4 or 5 players each, and not come up with the same names. It's just the history of first baseman aging is just not good. So it'll be real curious to see if they can keep him to a 3 year contract or if he's going to end up on the Mariners.
Yeah, Seattle, I don't know if they're going to spend either. He's going to want big bucks.
I don't think anyone's afraid of giving him big bucks, but is anybody going to commit to him for 6 or 7 years? I mean, you look at the Red Sox; they end up giving Alex Bregman, what was it, 280? So $40 million a year deal. So
Yeah, but
perhaps Pete.
look at it this way, Brian. The Yankees are itching to get even with the Mets for stealing Juan Soto. And Goldsmith's contract is expiring. He's on a 1 year deal, and
Right.
he's older than Alonso.
Right.
What if the Yankees offer Pete 6 or 7 years and steal him from the Mets?
I think a lot of Yankee fans would feel initially very good about that, and then year 4, year 5 rolls around. They're like, "Geez, we got to get rid of this guy. This contract's an anchor."
Yeah, that's true. And the Red Sox also need a first baseman. He would be great in Fenway.
Yeah, indeed. And I understand they just freed up a bunch of money, and that might be something to monitor.
Yeah, I was stunned by the Devers trade.
It's a big risk. The Red Sox seemingly betting on some type of addition by subtraction, that not having Devers will improve the clubhouse culture and the team will be better off on it. But to me, the biggest thing is going to be the salary relief that they got, because that was a 10-year, 310 million contract, something like that.
Yeah.
That was not a good deal. I mean, I know he was driving the offense this year, and he's been a tremendous hitter before this season too. But I don't think that one's going to age well either.
It's also ironic that he went to the Giants because he's not going to play third base there either. They've got Matt Chapman.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure who the Giants first baseman is, but he might be their first baseman. He might be their DH, but no, there's no way he's playing third in San Francisco. But anybody who's watched him play defensively doesn't really want him to play third either. So
That's
it's
true.
all right. Well, we've reached the crazy prediction segment of the show, and the way that works is I'll give you what I feel is a crazy prediction, and then I'll ask you to comment on it. And then we'll flip roles where you give me what you think is a crazy prediction, and I'll weigh in on whether or not I think that's crazy. So, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. My crazy prediction is that the Phillies, who are currently 2.5 games out of the NL East lead and who are the top wild card team, my prediction is they will not make the playoffs. So tell me, how crazy is that?
That's pretty crazy because so many teams get into the playoffs these days. It's like any high school team can make it almost. But with Aaron Nola really stumbling and physical problems too, maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. But the Phillies starting rotation really scares me.
If everyone is healthy and productive, they certainly have good starters. I think there's a little bit of a question about their bullpen. Maybe they get Alvarado back, which would help them make the playoffs, but I don't think he can pitch in the playoffs this year with the suspension.
Good point. Good point.
All right, well, you thought mine was kind of crazy, so hit me with yours.
How about Jurickson Profar comes back and helps the Braves down the stretch? They go on a tear and they make the playoffs.
I was a little bit surprised when we started off talking about the Braves getting off to the slow start, that Profar's name didn't jump up because he had such a good year last year and he seemed to be a good fit for the lineup. And then he didn't get off to a great start, and then he got hit with a suspension too. Profar's a guy that I liked for a long time, dating back to his minor league days when he was in the conversation as the top player in baseball. And back then he was an infielder. I don't think he's really capable of playing the infield now on more than an emergency basis, but he's okay defensively in the outfield, and he can really hit. So I can see him making a significant contribution to the Braves. Now, how far did you take his contribution?
I think, well, he has a chance to hit 20 home runs this season.
No, but your crazy prediction part was Profar and
Well, he comes back and the Braves go on a tear and make the playoffs.
wow. After seeing what happened in 2021, where the Braves got off to a bad start and then made a couple of trades and really turned their season around, I'm scared. I'm not gonna list that as crazy. I think normally any other franchise out there, I think I would go, oh my God, that's crazy. There's no way a team that's 9 games or 8 games under 500 right now is going to turn it on and make the playoffs. But if there's any team out there that can do it, I think the Braves are one of them. So, because I'm a chicken, I'm going to say not crazy, but really, it's crazy.
Well, the Braves have to beef up their bullpen. That's a really important.
Every year at the trade deadline, we see multiple relievers going from one team to another. What was it? The Nationals in 2019 had a horrible bullpen, and then they addressed it and ended up winning the World Series. And I'm sure there's half a dozen other examples out there of teams that do that. So if you have to have a need, having a need in the bullpen is not a bad one because guys are always out there available that you can trade for.
Well, I'm surprised nobody signed David Robertson.
It does make you wonder. And Robertson spent a half year with the Mets in 2023, and he was signed to be a setup man. But then after the injury to Diaz, he had to become the guy. He had to become the closer, and he was great. And his willingness to pitch wherever he needed to be and not rock the boat. I mean, I thought that was ideal, and I'm with you. I'm shocked that nobody has signed him. I even before the season started, you would think that that would be the type of player that, a team like the Pirates would sign with the complete idea of flipping him at the deadline.
Yeah, well, here's your crazy prediction. Kenley Jansen is coming back to the Braves.
Did he leave on good terms?
He did. He was a free agent. He left. Now he's with the Angels, but the Angels aren't going anywhere. The Angels need young players. Braves have young pitching in the minors, and the Braves need a veteran reliever.
All right, so that strikes another thought for me, and that's the Braves brought back Craig Kimbrell, who had many, many great years for them, and he came up and pitched one game, and they cut him. Do you have any idea what went on there?
I think they made a major mistake. It was also embarrassing, and the players and the clubhouse were unhappy about it. He was treated very poorly for a man with his record.
Yeah, from afar, it just seemed odd. And I mean, I know he pitched in one game. Was it horrible? Was his stuff just not there?
He pitched one inning. It was a scoreless inning, but there was a balk. There was a hit batsman. He didn't throw that hard. There were too many red flags, and Brian Snitker said this is not going to work.
You brought up Snitker, and he's had absolutely wonderful success guiding the Braves. But it seemed like things were a little rocky with him earlier in the year. Was Kelnick the player who was not hustling, and then Snitker didn't really do anything, and then Acuna sent out a tweet, something like that? Does that ring a bell?
Yes, and Acuna said, if that were me, I would have been suspended or fined or something. And he was right. He's right.
Yeah. So
You gotta be careful what you say in public, but Acuna was right.
has there been any follow up on that? Did Snitker and Acuna have
They
a
worked it
meeting?
out. There were apologies by both of them.
Well, that sounds like a best case scenario. You can't expect perfection 100% of the time. And if you're able to navigate those types of things, that's what makes a good manager.
But you know what else? Snitker's the oldest manager in the National League. This is his last year as a manager. You heard it here first.
You think he's calling it quits?
He will definitely retire.
Interesting. Good stuff. All right.
Lots They have lots of possibilities to replace him, by the way. I mean, Terry Pendleton, Eddie Perez, even Chipper Jones might be considered.
It's always interesting when somebody who was a Hall of Famer, and what kind of manager are they going to be? I mean, and the first thing that people think of is Ted Williams, and the thing or the idea, I guess, was that he couldn't necessarily relate to people who could just hit a home run when they needed to. So, but when you mentioned Chipper, and that's certainly a fascinating idea to me. Another one that we've heard of a lot recently is Albert Pujols, who might come over and take over the Cardinals.
That's true. Yeah, but for the Brewers, Walt Weiss has been the bench coach for a long time. He's another candidate. And how about this one? Freddie Gonzalez is now the third base coach.
I saw that they brought him back, and I thought that that was very interesting. And I didn't know what role it was. So third base coach. So he's certainly been a manager long enough that you don't worry about him taking over the role. But you've got me very intrigued by the idea of Chipper coming back. And to me, I think it's great when superstar players who have absolutely no need for money or attention or fame, someone like Chipper, if he was willing to accept the grind and do 162 games as a manager all season. As a fan, I would love to see that.
Me too.
All right. Well, we talked earlier about the Mets and Braves getting ready to play 7 games here in the next 2 weeks. So, what do you think will be the main factor in determining what happens in these upcoming battles between the two teams?
Well, I think the Braves are going to win 2 out of 3 in Atlanta, and the Mets and Braves will split the 4 games in New York.
Yeah, I think that the Mets are a little bit on their heels right now after going on an extended good streak. They got swept by the Rays, and certainly the holes in their pitching have developed. And the way that the Braves typically play against the Mets, it wouldn't surprise me if that was what ended up happening. And as a Mets fan, I'm sad to say this, but I think I would sign up for those results.
Wait, you got to remember, Brian. Pitching against the Mets in Atlanta, you're going to have Chris Sale, Swellenbach, and Strider, their top three pitchers.
Yes, and it's not like the Mets have any history of success against those three pitchers. So I think in a way they would be lucky to win one of those three.
Well, the Braves need wins desperately, and the Mets can coast for a while.
You know, I'd like to see them be aggressive and maybe step on the Braves' neck, but I really that would be the preferred outcome, but I just don't see it.
Okay, well, we have opposite opinions on that one.
So earlier we started off talking about your new book, the New Baseball Bible. What can you tell us about that?
Well, it's the only baseball book out there that is both a coffee table book and a bathroom book. It's got 25 chapters. You can read it backwards and still enjoy it. Lots of factoids, sidebars, unusual artwork, photographs, many from my own personal collection. It's got a foreword by Chip Carey, another foreword by John Thorne, the official historian of Major League Baseball, and it's got a Hall of Famers inside perspective on induction weekend written by Jeff Idelson for president former president of the Baseball Hall of Fame. So there are a lot of unusual things in this book. It's got beautiful artwork also by James Fiorentino, the best baseball artist out there. So for 30 bucks, it's a great gift. Father's Day is over. You can think about the winter holidays next.
You don't need any excuse to get a good baseball book.
That's true.
Any
That's
time of the year is good for that. One last thing before I let you go. As a longtime author and historian, you must have had some interactions with Henry Aaron. Is there anything about Aaron, who I think is one of those players that everyone who loves baseball loves Henry Aaron, and no ifs, ands, or buts? Is there anything that you can tell us about Hank?
Well, I did a book on Hank Aaron last year called Home Run King, The Remarkable Record of Hank Aaron. And there are many unusual things in the book. But one of them that really struck me was that he ran 12 miles further around the bases than anyone in baseball history.
Just because of all the home runs.
All the total bases, he's number one in total bases too.
Right, right, right. Yeah, that's something that you don't think about, but as soon as you say it, it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
He was a great player. And there's one other thing too that really struck me. Four Democratic presidents credited Hank Aaron's campaigning for them with putting them in the White House. Four of them.
Wow, wow.
Jimmy
Now,
Carter,
Carter certainly
obviously.
makes sense.
Yeah, Carter, Clinton, Obama, and Biden. They all said that.
Wow. Wow, I had never heard that quote. Excellent. Exactly the kind of thing that I wanted to hear. Well, Dan, thanks so much for joining us. Hope you enjoy the upcoming games with the Mets, although not too much. Good luck with the book, and hopefully we can get you back on here again before another 5 years goes by.
Anytime, Brian. You're a gentleman and a scholar and very fair.
You're very kind. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you again next week. Good night.